And basically the H was for what helps you keep going, really. And under that we identified really 3 areas that people found meaning and purpose. I think almost a given for most people would be that, you know, family is important. That's one. Another one could be that, you know, their occupation, because necessarily the people wouldn't have always left work. You know, some people, you know, they only just found out how ill they are or being diagnosed, and therefore, you know, they say, well, look, I was on a building site 6 weeks ago, sort of thing, but I can't manage anything now. So that person's got, you know, sort of got to come to terms with that. Gave me purpose. That gave me a reason to get up in the morning to provide for my family, perhaps. And now he's lost that. She's lost that role. So how do they come to terms with that? So that in some ways they're grieving for things that they're like what they're not able to do any longer. And sometimes as they decline, or you know, that meaning and purpose changes very, very quickly for them, sort of thing. So it was helping people to identify that, sort of list that. Then the O was to check whether ask somebody were they part of an organised religion or faith. Was there any particular practices with that? Very similar to just explaining, prayed every day, read the Bible every day. What do we need to ensure that happens? Do they want to see an ordained person, or are they quite happy there, or to see their own faith leader? Do they want that person? So we would then facilitate that sort of thing. So we would invite a chaplain from Aintree to come over, or you know, if needed to, we facilitate their own faith leader coming in to visit them. And the P was any personal spiritual practices that people had, and we were quite broad with that, because there might be somebody might meditate, or we said that, you know, the patient who did Tai Chi every morning, but it could be quite as simple as I read my newspaper and have my cup of coffee before I do anything else, and that it's almost like that's their ritual, and then we have to, and how do we accommodate that, and are we aware, and what are we going to do to support it? And the E was the effect that their illness is having upon their ability to accept the HOP of the model. And our role then was to, what can we do to support that? The one that really sticks into my mind, or has stayed in my mind, was a patient who came in, had lost their confidence to go out, and probably it's not unusual, it's just one that stuck with me, but probably there's a number of people, it's probably very universal as well. And through his symptoms, he'd almost created, his house had become a prison. He wouldn't go out, and he had some sort of dark thoughts around that sort of thing, how his disease was progressing. So he'd come in for symptom control and psychological support. So while doctors and nurses sort of brought his physical symptoms under control, I met him on a few occasions. We talked, and he'd started almost like to test himself by, he would go outside his room, because all our rooms have patio doors out into a garden, and he started to walk up there, but he said he still felt safe that if needed to, he'd get back to his room. So sort of to help him, we said, well, we've got another garden a little bit further away, a little bit bigger. Would you like to try that? So yeah, okay, he was quite open to that. So we did that, come back, and I think from my perspective, you could see the change in him a little bit then, so that, we have managed that. So when we spoke and said, well, we've got woods behind us, would you stretch it a little bit further, do you fancy going there? And he said, yeah, okay. So we walked in the woods, and again, it's slightly different. It's therapeutic, and you're talking with them as well, so it's about different issues. And again, come back. And I think then we went on one final walk, which we must have been out for a good hour, perhaps, come back. And talking to him the day after he was coming near to discharge, because he'd been very active in that way with sports and going out, he felt confident enough now that he could, his physical symptoms were under control. Whilst he couldn't play his sports, he could organise getting out into fresh air, socialising with his friends, because that was very important to him that he did that. So he was able to get out and about, and I think that was a mixture of seeing what is, what gave him meaning and purpose. How can we adapt that to here while he's here and test it, and it reintroduce him to a different aspect of it, that he would, how can I say, his same need was being met to socialise and be in the fresh air. We were just doing it in a different way for him, sort of thing. And to me, by looking at it in that way, that was us offering holistic care.